topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending. This isn't just a podcast. This is a call to action for all entrepreneurs who are tired of seeing their businesses and communities suffer while big business continues to grow by the billions. We challenge you to apply the content of our time together to create businesses that your clients can't resist, your employees love to work for, and your communities can depend on. Now is the time for Entrepreneurs Ascending. Hello, welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending, and welcome, Darcella. It's great having you on here today.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I don't know where I'm at today. Thank you.
I think Darcella's in the middle of a move, so it's not always easy to tell if you're coming or going when you're moving. But thank you for carving out the time with us today. So Darcella is with VetBiz, and we're going to be diving into why, first of all, do veterans make great business owners? I mean, there's a ton of things that they acquire being in service with the country, and then we're going to get into some of those resources in part two, and dive in what's available, what's realistic, and just kind of how you can plan for how to maximize those resources and succeed with your business. So yeah, and again, just a reminder, this show is really about not just listening, it's about taking it to action, because honestly, your communities depend on you. As we see big businesses, I'm not necessarily saying big businesses are all bad or anything like that, but when people work with big businesses and give them their money, typically it leaves our communities and it goes somewhere else, right? As opposed to whenever we have strong local businesses who know how to really take care of their clients and their customers, know how to really take care of their people. So people are just inspired to work with them. They just love to work with you as a small business owner. Then you're gonna put that back in the community. So you're depending on you, your family, your employees, their families, your communities, everybody. So take it to heart. Don't just listen passively. Take it to action. So, all right. Well, Darcella, thank you so much for being with us today again. And so veterans, they learn so much in the military, and they acquire such deep skills and discipline and everything. So tell me, like, what in your eyes, working with veterans every day, what are some of the big takeaways that they get from the military that make them great business owners and entrepreneurs?
Well, Matt, I appreciate you asking me to be on here. Thank you very much. So here's the thing. I also appreciate that you said strong small business owners who take care of their customers, because I think that is one of the challenges that many small businesses have, is the perception that if something goes wrong with a small business, well, I have no recompense. If something goes wrong with a larger business, there's all of these things that I can get. But I do appreciate what you're talking about. A strong small business that takes care of their customers really does build a community. And at my organization, that's kind of what we do. We talk about building strong veteran-owned businesses. So your question was, what do we learn in the military? So I'm an Army veteran. And originally, prior to me even thinking about entrepreneurship, if someone would have asked me that question, I would have said, well, I know how to get up and follow orders. That's what I know how to do. Right?
Fair. Okay, fair.
I know how to put on the clothes that you tell me to put on. I know how to go to the places you tell me to go, and I know how to do the thing you tell me to do.
Okay.
And at first, I would not have thought, oh, that can translate into entrepreneurship. Having done this now for 20 years, I realized that a part of this whole process is thinking differently and utilizing your skills differently. So that veteran who gets up, does what they're supposed to do, goes where they're supposed to go, really understands process. And so that's the first thing that I think veterans do bring to the table of entrepreneurship, is comprehending and understanding that processes need to be done in order to make a thing work.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so that's number one, right? Yeah. Which is, by the way, why veterans do so well in franchises. The second thing that I believe that we as veterans bring to the table is comprehension and understanding of teamwork, right? So
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the military, it's rare that you do anything by yourself, even if you feel like you're doing it by yourself.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. There's always some sort of support team behind you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You, in order to make anything happen, I was Signal Corps. I'm working on radios way back in the day before there was wireless. You needed to make sure that you got a lot of people. The whole commo team had to be on board. The operations officers and enlisted needed to be on board. So everybody needed to be on board. There needed to be a team to make this thing happen. So I think
hmm
that's the other thing that veterans do bring to the table is the comprehension that you're, even if you feel like you're alone, which in
hmm
entrepreneurship, as you know, you do.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Sometimes you do. hmm
yeah, and then also self-motivation. Because there
hmm
are times in the military when you get told, go make this thing work. And when you get out there, nobody's watching you, right? You look around, I could do this on my
hmm
own. But there is this internal piece that is instilled in you that says you've got to get this done and you've got to get this done right. If
Yeah.
for no other reason you don't want to come back and have to do it again.
This time with your toothbrush.
This time, gosh, or maybe somebody else's, right? So there's that, and then initiative. So those are the top four things that I can think can right off the top of my head. An initiative, right?
Yeah.
When you do in innovation, so initiative and
Mm.
innovation. I'm going to five because when
Mhm.
you get out there, you may realize that the thing you were supposed to go to do needs you to do something else, and you
Yeah.
may not have been trained on fixing this. Well, you've got to figure it out. So
Mhm.
innovation and initiate in whatever that other word was I said today. Take an initiative. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, initiative. Well, I love those points. I mean, especially like if you go back to the first point, process.
Mhm.
So often working with small business owners, like that's one of the hardest things for them to even embrace is set a process, make it consistent.
Mhm.
And that way you can teach other people and delegate it out, or we can figure out how to automate it. So I love that if you already get process, you're several steps ahead, I think, of like a
Mhm.
lot of small business owners. um
Oh, yeah,
now,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So and I love what you said too, that even kind of helps them to maybe even succeed so well in like a franchise. So tell me
Mhm.
a little bit more about that. Like what do you see, veterans, getting, how do they benefit from franchises?
So a couple of things. Franchises obviously already come with a playbook, which is your SOP, right, in the
Mhm.
military.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I tell people all the time, a sergeant's a sergeant's a sergeant. You can pick up a sergeant out of Colorado, stick him or her in Germany, and then pick them up and put them in Japan, and then pick them up and put them back in Fort Benning. And that sergeant is going to know what he or she's supposed to do because there's processes already in place.
Yeah.
Now they may need to tweak here and there, based on the situation and all those
Mhm.
other things that I talked about, initiative, innovation, etc. But the process is there because you have an SOP, you have a standard operating, a procedure that
Mhm.
tells you how to do everything. So franchises work very much like that. It's already mapped out for you. You need to initiate, you need to implement the plan. And
Mhm.
then again, you can tweak it along the way, but that's why they do as well as they do in franchises.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. That's great.
Mhm.
Yeah, because there's a ton of franchises out there, and
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course you want to find one that actually has like a good defined set of processes that you can follow, and good,
yeah.
orders, if you will, I guess.
Right.
Um, s- but what about, so often in business we're dealing with information coming at us from multiple directions. We're dealing with the stress of our own personal lives, maybe especially startups. You're dealing with the stress of budgets, or really any size business dealing with the stress. What about that ability to like to be able to work under pressure? How do you
Mhm.
feel like that comes into play?
Well, I don't think there's any other place that I went into the military at 17. So I don't think there's any other place that shows you pressure right away, immediately. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
first day I was in the Army, November 3rd, 1988, I was in a barracks in
Uh-huh.
Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and I heard a bunch of screaming and yelling and moving, and I jumped up, forgetting where I was, and I screamed, "Who the hell is in my room?"
Oh.
And I even if I had been at home, that would have been a mistake. But when you're groggy and you're working on 2 hours of sleep, you jump up,
Oh.
and it was this the smallest human being I've ever met. Her name was Drill Sergeant Pena, and she came up to me. She was smacking me in the face with this with her cat her cat. And she was smacking me, and she was like, "It's me. This is my place." And she's just like calling me everything but my name. And she shoves a cup into my chest and says, "Drink this and get the hell out of my barracks." Right? That was the first day I ever drank coffee, too, by the way. So I remember. And then you're just moving, you're working, you're moving, you're working, and that doesn't stop. Now, I know today's military does have a lot more downtime, which is great. They need it. But there's still, I don't think any other place where you're jumping in and you're moving and you're learning on the job day one.
Yeah.
So that is also a thing in entrepreneurship. You're learning on the job day one. There's stressors. No one's necessarily telling you how to do it. So you do need to pull from all of those experiences. And I will tell you, Matt, that's one of the things that as we're coaching veterans, people forget because we're all human, and people forget they've gone through that. Because in the military, it does become a regular job. I mean, you do eventually wake up, go to work, go home, and
Yeah.
you do forget that the things that you're doing in the military are not at all like your peers are doing at their corporate job.
Yeah. 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 So that's a great example of like you're young, you're just getting into it, and you gotta get pushed into it, and of being able to work under pressure. I love that. So, what would you say is like your biggest lesson that you got from in leadership uh, from the military?
Wow. Oh, wait, you're gonna make me pick one. So I tell veterans all the time, do not get on the island of me. And
Mm,
we know we're on the island of me whenever we hear ourselves say things like, "Oh, I'm the only one who has to," or "No one else can." So we're on that island solidly when we're saying that. Uh,
mhm,
I always tell them, turn around. There's a whole bunch of people on that island with you. Probably one of them can solve your problem.
mhm.
Um, but that's one of the things that I learned in the military was that's the biggest leadership thing is I don't need to be the only one doing this. That there are
Yeah.
other people who are here to help, and you don't need to overstress on the small things that someone else can do. So the delegation and letting things go is one,
Mhm.
and that's one I had to tap into. It's not one that immediately comes to mind if you're a veteran, because you do get kind of wrapped up in, I got to get this done, I got to make it work, innovation, etc. And
Yeah.
you forget that you're not alone, and that is the biggest one that I did learn in the military. That and don't
Mhm.
let anyone get between you and your money. That was it.
You learned that in the military?
I did learn that in the military.
Tell me more about how did you learn that in the military?
It was this wonderful sergeant in Germany who
Yeah.
I had my first daughter in the military, and
Mhm.
there was a young soldier that was just causing me problems, just
Mm.
causing me problems. And I was young, and I was like, okay, we're gonna settle this the old-fashioned way, right? We're gonna settle this. And he pulled me aside and he said, first of all, you outrank her. You should use the resources you already have. And he said, "It now listen to what happens if you go and fight, you are going to lose money. You're going to lose rank. You're going to lose." And he
Mm.
said, "Don't let anyone ever get between you and your money." And that I was that was so from this thing
Yeah.
potentially negative, I learned one of the most valuable lessons that I've ever learned.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, just to unpack that, that's
mhm,
uh that's a because it also gets you to take a step back and
mhm,
and not just react emotionally.
absolutely.
And I think as any human being, that's one of the toughest things to do is to learn how to take a step back and
Mhm.
kind of analyze, okay, how do I want to react to this situation?
Yes.
So so is that I mean, that's not getting between you and your money, like I that's just kind of a small example. So would you say that like that ability to take a step back and look at the situation before jumping in emotionally with it and analyzing it. Was that part of what you learned then?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think that sergeant ever comprehended how much of an impact he made on me.
Yeah.
That one sentence in that one moment where he just was imparting his 25-year-old wisdom onto to a
Yeah.
19-year-old. And no, absolutely, it is. First of all, what is the outcome that I'm really trying to get here?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lesson. Two,
Yeah.
have I stepped back and taken a breath to see what are the other resources that are out there that I'm not utilizing
Mm-hmm.
to make the goal happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number three. And four, what are the negative outcomes that could happen if I react as a small business owner, if I react in a way that is rude to the customer, or I don't show up on time, or any number of
Mm-hmm.
other things. So absolutely, there was a ton in there that,
Yeah.
that later on down the line, as I got older and started my own company and started helping other veterans, I was like, wow, that man never understood what he said.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that skill set, I think that's one of the most underrated skill sets, unfortunately, of just being able to take a step back
Mhm.
and choose how we're going to react.
Right.
Um, and I guess you see that a lot, though, too. I mean, even dealing with drill sergeants and that kind of self discipline
Mhm.
of being able to, I mean, necessarily hold back the emotions, but choose, how you're going to express them, or if you're, if or make a decision about not expressing them at all, I
Mhm.
guess, right? So,
Yeah.
so as you started your own small business, like, but what was the small business that you had started?
So, yeah. Okay. So before I forget, I want to step back just a
Oh, yeah,
little.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Something you just said, which I think is super important, because there are some negative things, some things that aren't just positive that we learn in the military that do
Yeah.
sometimes trickle over into small business. And one of those is that too easy, no worries, got it, I'm done kind of attitude that does put you on the island of me. So one of
Yeah.
the things that we coach veterans to do is to stop saying the words too easy, because
Hmm.
it's not too easy necessarily. And in the military, the word too easy the phrase means got it, I'll get it done. If I need help, I'll come back and ask you, or I'll figure it
Okay.
out. And then when it's done, we'll talk. But out here in the civilian world, that doesn't necessarily translate to all of that. It translates to give you enough to do, right?
Right. Right.
That's too
Yeah.
simple. Maybe I'm not, maybe I'm paying too much, right? So we try to coach them through the language that does tend to drop you onto the island of me, and then also the lack of emotion. Sometimes we are taught in the military to tamp it down, get it done, drive through it, over it, under it, through it, around it, and sometimes that also can be pretty negative
Hmm.
as you're interacting in the small business world. So there are some things that we got to make sure that yeah, driving through stuff and making sure it happens is great, but let's make sure you're not doing a scorched earth policy as you're running through there.
Well, and I was going to ask about that because I was kind of getting into some of your experiences, with your
Mhm.
own business and leadership, because, I think right now we are in the midst of, the Great Resignation, and
Mhm.
people are reanalyzing
Right.
their leadership styles, their cultures, and how they're building teams and interacting with teams. And I think there's that stigma,
Mhm.
for veterans, that they're going to be like, purely militaristic, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not really what I see typically in working with my clients who are veterans, but
Right.
typically they're actually typically the most open to trying to figure out, what are some better resources to actually help people. But how would you kind of, you know counter argue, what counter argument would you have against that stigma in terms of like your own experiences,
Mhm.
or what you've seen working with other veterans?
Absolutely. So the first thing I will say is absolutely, if you wanted to get done as a
Hmm.
military person, well, I'm going to tell you, first of all, it was my mother who taught me this, but the military just honed it, right?
Right.
So
Okay. All
some
right.
of these lessons go all the way back to your family, right? But the military kind of honed it. If you want to get something done, it's going to get done.
Hmm.
the argument to that, people say, yeah, but yeah, he or she's just going to drive through it. They're not going to pay attention. They're going to, whatever. I'm like, I absolutely agree with you, Matt. I think the issue when veterans feel like that is because they do not trust the team that they're around. So one of the things that I would tell people who are working with them is make sure you're building the trust with the
Hmm.
veteran that you have on your team as a small business owner. Maybe you're doing a joint venture, that sort of thing. Make sure that you spend some time building trust, because remember, in the military trained you to be this unorganized, flip-floppy, civilian-brained human being, and turned you into a person that no matter where I put you, you will stand next to me and fire at an enemy.
Hmm.
And I am saying to you, after I get through all this training, that no matter where I go, Matt, if I just met you yesterday and you and I have to go out into a combat situation, I am willing to throw myself in front of a bullet to keep you safe, or go into danger to bring you back in. So you remember that's a brain, that's mindset that does not necessarily get filtered out
Hmm.
of you as you're coming out.
Yeah.
Now, again, also remember, people are people. So not every human is that way, right? There are some
Yeah.
veterans who are less in that space. So one of the things I will say to folks is spend time building trust at the beginning.
Hmm.
Then you won't have to worry about the scorched earth policy, right?
Yeah.
Because the veteran's going to make sure that they work with you.
Yeah.
It's a trust building thing. So yeah,
So,
so a little bit off topic there, but yeah, that's what I would say back, because
hmm,
it's more than just what's the one thing I can do.
yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
go back and rebuild.
Yeah. I think that's great. And if you're a veteran and thinking about starting a business, and you look at y- y- looking at the younger generations, and what people say about them, the stigmas around the younger generations. Do you
Mhm.
think that a veteran who's out there considering starting a business and knowing they've got to have a team and they've got to run that team, do you think that there's any sort of hesitation with working with the younger generations at all? And if so, what kind of words of wisdom might you have for them?
Yeah, so I will say, so I do love this generational talk, right? Because I'm Gen X. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
obviously the joke was, whenever we had to go into lockdown, I was like, oh, cool. I was a latchkey kid anyway. This is no problem.
Right. Right. Right.
I, my generation created the Xbox. We're good, right? We do innovation. That's how we do it, right? This generation today. So again, remember, I would always tell people, remember, you're lumping a large amount of people into one thing. You're not
Yeah.
taking into consideration any situational um, uh, issues or environmental impact. However, let's go to the millennials, or the next generation. I don't know what they call them in the military today. Uncle Sam is still very, very good at turning you into a drive on military person, regardless of what generation you came from. So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
still getting the same stuff. What I will say about working with this younger generation is they truly do believe all boats rise together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is absolute. I actually like working with this group, because they do look around and go, wait a minute, this guy's not coming, or this gal's not coming. Let's stop, let's back up, let's pick them up. So that's
Yeah.
always good too. So remembering that, um, when you're working with the group, again, it's the same thing in the military. That's what the
Yeah.
military does. They're like, hey, we've got a person who fell. So one of our taglines in our military, in our company, is we don't leave people on the jungle trail, the desert trail, or the paper trail.
Hmm. Hmm. That's awesome. And I think what kind of made me think about it too is when we were talking so much about trust,
Mhm.
and it's so important in the military. It's so important as a veteran. I think it's really, really important, especially for the younger. They want to be with a team that they can trust.
Mhm.
And I love that yeah, they believe all boats rise together as well. And so I think that those are beautiful some
Mhm.
beautiful feedback for folks. Um, so if you're a veteran, you're out there and you're thinking, how should I start a business? Should I not? Hopefully you've got some great takeaways here from today, that like, yeah, I mean, you've got the skills and the discipline, and that leadership and all that I think would be great for you. And we're almost to half, so we're going to do a quick commercial. And when we get back, I'm going to let Darcella, I'm going to ask her more about her organization, and she's going to really explain what she does, as well as what the resources are for any sort of veterans who are trying to start a business, so that so you don't have to be out on your own, because there's a ton of resources out there for you. So, all right, let's go ahead and roll the commercial. Have you been suffering from chronic pain, disease, or sleep disorders? Did you know that 75 to 90% of disease is caused by inflammation in the body? The sad truth is, most doctors just treat symptoms rather than finding and fixing root causes of inflammation. If you want to fix your health problems, then finding and fixing the cause of the inflammation is a must. It's time to demand this for your health care and start living life to its fullest again. Book a discovery appointment with the Functional Health Team founder, Dr. Flora, to get your answers ASAP at www.functionalhealthteam.com. All right, and we're back. And thank you, Darcella, again for being here. Again, Darcella is with, well, can you explain to everybody what the organization that you're with is, and what you do, and why it's so important for veterans to know about you?
Yes. So my company is called VetBiz. So we are at vetbiz.com, and vet is in veteran, VETBIZ.
Mhm.
What we do is we are a small business consulting firm that assists veterans, military families, and transitioning military with starting and expanding small business. So everything from the ideation, like, I think I want to be a small business owner. We do training on 7 military posts, and we specifically operate in Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, and the southern part of Illinois. There are 21 other centers like ours across the country. And if you don't fall into one of those states, we'll help you get to another one. What we do is we help you through that process, whether it is, I need to understand company culture. What kind of goals do I have? So with some of the softer skills things, am I the right person to try to actually sell the widget, or should I just be making the widget and hire someone to sell it? Because I'm not great with customers. All the way through all the way through to somebody who's maybe trying to do evaluation or sell a company or bring on partners or hire. So everything in between. And I am the president and chief fear conqueror of the agency. And I have 4 other amazing team members, and we're looking for a 5th and a 6th. So I'm just saying, the reason why I call myself chief fear conqueror is because I find that over the 17 years I've been doing this, one of the main things I'm doing is pushing people through fear. Whether it's overanalyzation, which is a thing that we veterans tend to do, overanalyzation or what ifs, or they switch too many things. Well, now I'm going to do this and now I'm going to do that. Sometimes you just got to say, okay, let's go, see what happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and if you're a veteran thinking about getting into business, yeah, you that's a big part of what you have to do. You have to be able to set the tone for the future, and do it confidently, right?
Yeah, and our services are no cost
Okay.
to those groups of people. We do not charge you a dollar. The uniform you put on, or the uniform your military family member put on, is paid for our service. There are some things we do charge for, but that's a whole other set of people. And but I will say this: I'm like the godmother. I will come back and ask you for something. So so it will be like, maybe we ask you to come back and mentor the next group of people, or come back and speak,
Mhm.
or or come back and do something. Or if you're not immediately around us and you don't want to jump online, what we'll ask you to do is show us how you're giving back to your community.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So it's kind of a pay it forward thing, It's
Absolutely.
not too shady. It's just it's just pay it forward. You,
Yeah,
you got some free
absolutely.
assistance, help others with it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. It's awesome. You kind of made it sound like mafia,
Yeah.
like, want to make you a deal you can't refuse. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah. So it is really interesting because it is a pay it forward. It is, are
Yeah.
you giving back to your community? Are you mentoring the next, small business owner? Or
Yeah.
are you volunteering? What are you doing to, as you say, build a strong small business that's
Hmm.
supporting your community?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And so what got you, like, what inspired you to, you didn't start this organization, or did you start this organization?
I
No.
did not. So I
Right.
came
Okay.
I came on board when they were about a year in,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
so they started in 2000 and officially started in 2004, and I
Mm-hmm.
joined them at the January of 2006. So they had flopped
Okay.
around for a while, and then they really started in 2005, and then I jumped on board 2006, and then 2 years after I started there, the founding director quit, and in his
Oh my
resignation,
gosh.
yeah, in his resignation letter, he told the board, and Darcella Craven should be your next director, and that's kind of how I got promoted. Um,
Well, congratulations. I know
well,
I'm a little bit late to the party, but
yeah. So I've been there 17 of the 18 years of the agency,
Wow.
and we've kind of changed and built and restructured because it's a nonprofit. So we restructured and changed and built along the way,
Mm-hmm.
and I have an amazing team now that's taking it to a whole other direction that I couldn't even have thought about. So I'm pretty excited about what they're doing and their young minds are doing to where we're going to go in the next 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
But you'd asked me how I got into this. So all right.
Yeah.
So I got out of the military in 1996 with
Mm-hmm.
absolutely no plan. I ran across some really amazing people who helped to guide me because I was old enough to pay attention and listen to, what the world was telling me. I went from a high school education to a master's degree in 4 years. And that was hustling. That was tapping into everything I had ever learned in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Got that done. I was heading for the corporate communications. I was corporate communications and project coordinator in a corporation. I was on the way to the corner office in the Gold Watch. And I realized one day when I was sitting in a marketing meeting in this company, and I started cussing people out in the meeting because they were fighting over the color of an ink pen, that
Oh my gosh.
that I was losing it. So I literally cussed everyone out in the room. I cussed them out full on army vernacular. I got up and left the meeting. I went to start packing because I thought surely I've been fired. So I need to go. And
Was it like in Yes Man, or isn't it Yes Man the movie where he's like royal blue, like he's trying to?
oh yeah, it was insane. It was. And I
Oh
got
my
up
gosh. Yeah.
and I left, and this here's where your network comes into play. Ted DeBurr was the CEO of the company at the time. He was a army colonel, retired. He happened to be walking by. He walked up to me and he said, "Have you been to the VA? I think you need some help."
Hmm.
So I didn't get fired because this
Okay.
man recognized something was happening in me, and I hadn't gotten any mental help about everything I had done in the military or any of those things. So
Yeah.
I did not get fired. I was able to move along from that company to another company to another couple of companies. I went into nonprofit space as one of those transitions. Loved what I was doing there, but and really loved the nonprofit world, but it was a hard mission. And
Mm.
so I left there after 3 years. And as I was doing evaluations of what my next step was going to be, because by the way, I just left with no plan and no job. I just left. And it was like
Wow.
2003. And but I remember thinking that my nonprofit director friends were amazing people who had no business sense whatsoever. They had amazing hearts, but they didn't know how to actually implement any of the things that they said they were going to do for the money that they received. And so that's what I did. I started a small nonprofit. I mean, started a nonprofit consulting firm that I would help. Well, it was a for-profit for me, but I would help nonprofits to implement the grants and either write a report saying why they couldn't do what they were doing or adjust so they can ensure that they, made the mission. And that's how I
Mm-hmm.
got into entrepreneurship.
Wow.
Um, the funny part, Matt, is that this organization, so that would have been 2003 to about 2000 and maybe 5 or 6 that I did that. I did not realize that VetBiz, which was under a different name at the time, was around. So I didn't utilize the resources. I
Oh
couldn't
yeah.
use.
Nobody told you. It was the best kept
Nobody
secret.
told me. So,
Ah, that's what we're trying to prevent here today. I'm telling you. We're telling you. Darcella and I are telling you.
right, right. And actually, again, it's network. So I want to emphasize that a lot because
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a couple of people who I'd met during my small business as I was networking and talking to
Mm-hmm.
folks and starting to educate myself. One of the women who I had spoken with said, "Hey, there's this company called." It was a Veterans Business Resource Center. There's this company called Veterans Business Resource Center. They're looking for a consultant. why don't you just go talk to them? I know you have your own thing, but go talk to them. And I did, and it was a great fit. And I thought I could still be in the entrepreneurship space, but I don't need to kill the meat every day. I'm in. And then, by the way, a few years later, here I am running the place, killing the meat again because I love it. But yeah, that is the thing is I wish I would have known about vet biz at the time because I would not have gotten audited by the IRS twice.
Oh, yeah,
That's fun
yeah,
because somebody would have been there to show me like here's how you set your books up and here's what you should be doing and here's how you pay those taxes.
yeah, yeah. Whew, yeah. Well, so if somebody's thinking about starting a business, like at what point should they be contacting you, and what does that process look like?
They should contact us now, right now.
Mhm.
As you're listening, jump on to vetbiz.com because we will help you through the entire process. Many times,
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, as you know, being an entrepreneur yourself, have so many different ideas in their heads and they're competing for headspace all the time.
Absolutely.
And we can help you with that. We also
Hmm.
focus a lot on you internally and why you're doing what you're doing so that you can start setting up company culture and goals at the beginning. So as you start to grow and hire, you're hiring people in with the comprehension of your own culture and who you are and what you want from your team members. So we spend a lot of time focused there. And then we move into kind of the more traditional, business plan, technical stuff, marketing plans, etc.
Yeah, yeah. So get a hold of you immediately. Now,
Mhm.
what about somebody who kind of wants to start a business, but maybe they don't know what to do yet? Now, you said like that there's a lot of ideas bouncing around their head. So how do you help them to kind of figure out what to do?
So a couple of things. So one of the things I tell my team is right resource, right information, right time. Our job is not
Okay.
necessarily to be the one to work with you because there is so much out there,
Mm,
particularly in larger communities like if you're listening to this in Wichita or if you're listening to this in Omaha, there are so many resources around some of those larger city centers that we make sure you get you to that one because there's probably an ideation program happening that you can even do online. So it's not even limited to your town anymore. And then of
mhm.
course, rural communities there's so much ideation and innovation coming here soon with the community navigator programs that are happening that'll be happening in this 2022. So there are resources around you. You may just not know about them because your ear isn't tuned to hear the words. So
Yeah.
one of the things that we'll try to do is help you start listening for the right words in your community that people are saying. And then you're like, oh,
Mm,
wait a minute, I can do that program. So there are tons of programs that are out there. We'll get you to the one that makes the most sense for you, whether that is an ideation, like how do I even make sure I have a viable product, or maybe it's listening to this program, right? So sometimes it can be as easy as click on this link and listen to this program because they have great people on that will walk you through some of the things that you're maybe going through.
mhm.
We have something called VetBiz Activate, which is specifically designed for people who don't quite um, haven't landed on an idea, so we can
Mhm.
help them narrow it down. But there's so many programs like that around. I would say come to our website, request counseling, and tell us where you're at. And if you're
Okay.
not in one of our states, we'll get you to somebody who can help you.
Okay. And
Yeah.
before you mentioned even franchises too, that a lot of times franchises can be great for veterans. You mentioned that in part one, and so do you help them like maybe even look at what franchises there are available?
Yes, we work with a great group of people called Vet Fran across our region who do
Okay.
not get paid by you. They get paid by whatever franchise you eventually choose, if you choose. So they're straight, commission for that other company. And then their only job is to help you decide what makes sense for you. And so, because there are franchises out there from $5,000 to $1 million, and
Yeah.
where do you fall in? So we'll help you. And how we work is we still do the same company culture kind of conversations with you. We still have the conversation about how you communicate, how you show up in life.
Hmm.
So that way, when you're picking a franchise with these other people who understand franchises like the back of their hand, we're still working with you on, well, now how do you hire? What types of people do you need to bring with you? So absolutely, we work. That's how we kind of combine resources.
Okay.
There's so much out there; it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, one big question that I know a lot of folks wonder about are grants, and you even mentioned navigating grants before and all that. So, are there grants out there available for veterans, and are they like for specific needs within a business or specific types of businesses?
Mhm.
What do they look like?
Okay, so okay, everybody lean in. So I'm
All
going to
right.
tell you some stuff. Get your pen out, right? All right. One, if you are a small business owner, you need to think about the word grant differently than every other person in the world. Grant does not necessarily mean someone's going to hand you a dollar into your hand. It could still mean that. But grant could also mean, for example, you come to work with our team or one of the other teams and they don't give you a bill at the end. We'll have lawyers that will talk to you for free. If a lawyer talks to you for free for 4 hours and doesn't hand you a bill, you've just received a grant. So that's money that you can use other places in your business, right? So attend to your language and think differently about what the word grant is. Now, there are some traditional dollar in hand programs. The word pitch competition should be the language that you're using and looking for. Because
Mm,
it's generally not fill out this application, you for profit business, tell me how great your idea is, and I'm going to give you cash. That's
mm,
usually not how that works. Usually it's a pitch competition where you think you have a great idea, some corporation or some wonderful investor has decided they want to invest, and you go compete, very similar to Shark Tank. There's a
okay.
ton of that out there, and those are all over the United States. Again, having a resource partner can help you find those. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to ask, like, yeah, how do
Yeah,
you find those? Yeah. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So two things: change the language that you're using when you're searching, looking for pitch competition versus grant,
Hmm.
and then there are some places like Bunker Labs or Goldman Sachs usually does a straight grant. There's Alice that does a grant specifically for women veterans. I mean, there are things out there, and that's why I say get to one of either us or get to one of our counterparts, and they can help you because usually we put that stuff on our website or we put it on our social media. So our social media is VetBiz, and we're VetBiz everywhere, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Instagram, Facebook. We usually, if we come across that stuff, we'll put it out there. The other thing that these resource partners can do for them, Matt, is they can make sure it's legitimate because there's a lot of not legitimate places out there.
That's
Uh,
unfortunate. Yeah.
yeah. And the last one I want to say is service disabled veterans, service connected disabled
Okay.
veterans who are at least 30% do have a grant program through the Veterans Administration. It's through what they call vocational rehabilitation. And if it
Okay.
is deemed that you, as a veteran, between you and your counselor, that you need to go into self employment, you can get up to $20,000, which is a grant. Again,
Wow.
they don't hand it to you. There's not like they're not going to give you a
Yeah.
check, but they will pay for things.
Okay.
So yeah,
What kind of things do they pay for? Like equipment,
yeah. So
software,
so
resources?
they never pay for equipment, but they do pay for tools.
Okay. All right.
So it's also about using the language that, again, it's attending to your language, right? They don't pay for
Right.
equipment, they'll pay for tools that you need to make your life work well. And so, for example, if you are a baker and you need an industrialized kitchen, like an industrial stove, they'll buy that stove for you. If you're a garage door company and you need to retrofit your entire garage to turn it into a showroom, they'll do that.
Oh,
They
wow.
won't purchase land. They won't purchase a house. They won't purchase the truck. But if you have a truck and you're a mobile oil company, these are all examples of people who've actually done this. They will retrofit your entire truck to be the mobile oil company. Say that
Wow.
fast 3 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they will. But again, there's a lot of ifs with that. So the first thing I'm going to tell you to do, if you believe you might be eligible, is to talk to your vocational rehabilitation counselor at the VA.
So, okay. Have you ever heard of it paying or helping to pay for like franchise fees or anything like that as well? Or
They don't particularly, no, they won't really pay for franchise fees.
mm,
They will pay for, like, if you purchased a franchise,
hmm
and you need to do something in your particular home or buy some tools, or maybe you need a new chest, a new equipment that we call tools. They'll
tools?
purchase
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
But again, they will not just give you a straight check. You do need to work with someone like us, or maybe a small business development center or a SCORE chapter that's out there, and I'll tell you what all those are. But you do need to work with somebody in order for the VA to make that happen for you.
Okay. Okay. So, what are, I guess, those list of some of those resources? Because you said a SCORE chapter. You go ahead
Yeah.
and what are those? Yeah, please.
So here's the first thing. It is overwhelming. So sometimes
Hmm.
people say there's nothing out there. And I'm like, well, no, actually, there's a lot of something out there. It's so much sometimes that it's just becomes noise.
Mm.
First thing I'm going to tell you, no matter where you are, if you have a source link in your area, so sourcelink.com, whether it's KC source link or Missouri source link or Nebraska source link, or, but SourceLink usually has curated everything in your community into one website.
Mm.
That can still be overwhelming. I would definitely say sign up with one of the free business consulting services through the VBOC, which is that Veterans Business Outreach Centers. And I said there are 21 other centers like ours. We are in a group called VBOCs. So go to sba.gov/veterans, and you can find the VBOC in your community, and they'll help you kind of navigate your community, because there are a lot of community specific things. There might be a SCORE chapter in your area, which are across the country. And SCORE used to stand for Service Corps of Retired Executives. It no longer is retired executives. It's now a lot of different mentors. So score.org. A small business development center is probably in your community. They're usually attached to a university. They're there to help you. Women's Business Center, if you're a woman veteran or a woman small business owner or a military spouse, women's business centers are designed to help you. And there's quite a few of them across the world. Across the country, there's hundreds. So you'll probably find one in your community. If you're going into government contracting, there's organizations called procurement technical assistance centers that are specifically designed for veterans who are small business owners who are interested in government contracting. So
Okay.
it can go down to the minutia, right? So there's so much, which is why we always suggest you getting a consultant that's there to help you navigate the noise.
Hmm. Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you. Thank you. Now we're kind of wrapping up here. We've only got a couple minutes left. So I guess just kind of recap. In part one, we were talking about how if you're a veteran, don't underestimate the skills that you could bring to the table.
Mhm.
And as we were kind of talking about, I think sometimes um, people might be concerned about working with younger generations, but I think there's ways to do that, to build that trust, and there's that similar mentality of all boats must rise.
Mhm.
So, and then if there's that ideation component, you said, as we were kind of jumping into a lot of the resources, you guys help out even sometimes with just kind of narrowing that down and filtering it out, and or maybe learning how to listen, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
And then how do folks? What are some of the best ways for folks to get a hold of you? Just to kind of recap that, so that they know, because I mean, you listed a ton of resources, and so probably the best place for them to start is probably just to reach out to you guys and
Right.
guys and gals, and you can probably help guide them to which ones they need to listen to or to find, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So no matter what branch of service you served in, even
Hmm.
though I was Army, if you were Navy, I'll still talk to you. Most of my family was Navy. I don't know. No, but any branch of service, any point in time served, any military spouse, vetbiz.com is the
Okay.
first place you should start. And we'll get you to the right resource.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and hopefully this has been really helpful for anybody. If you know a veteran and they didn't get a chance to listen to this, please share this podcast with them.
Mhm.
If you're a veteran
Yes.
yourself, I really hope this helped out, because we need more people like you, really, that cares about your community, cares about the people around you, and knows how to lead a team and stay focused on the mission and build up your community. So, and Darcella, again, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm sure there's a million
Thank
more things that
you.
we can talk about. Maybe we can get back on here again sometime. But really, really appreciate you being here with us today, and I encourage everybody to go check out her site and to work with her. So,
Well,
thanks.
thank you for doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you. All right,
Have a good one.
you too. Thank you for being with us today. But now is the time to put what we talked about into practice. Remember, your family, employees, and community are depending on you to rise up and win. The great news is you're not alone. You're part of a resurgence of entrepreneurs who are ready to take their business, life, and impact to the next level, and we're going to do it together. This show is powered by Time for Success, where we help business owners every day who want more freedom and wealth while building a legacy of positive impact. Please follow Time for Success